Hello, everyone. Thank you for once again listening to the Football Betting Podcast with me, Tom Pipkin, and my co host, Tom Walker. We've got another action packed weekend of football fixtures across the Premier League, Championship, League One, and League Two to sink our teeth into and pick out our betting highlights. So, hopefully, win everybody a bit of extra cash this weekend. We are sponsored by our good friends at matchbook.com. You can bag yourself, as ever, a juicy sign up bonus of a £30 money back as a free bet if you sign up for Matchbook using the code TFB podcast during the registration. Tom, how's it going, mate?
It's good. Obviously, the run with the trebles sadly came to an end last week. But as I said on Twitter, smile because it happened, not because it's over. It was a great run. The FA Cup was always going to be a tough one with a shriveled EFL docket to go at, but still really happy with the 4 I think we got in a row, 4 or 5 we got in a row, and raring to go. Yeah, raring to go this week with a full Premier League, Championship, League One, and League Two docket.
Yeah, I did chuckle when I saw your tweet about it. You called it the steak, didn't you? Instead
I
of the
know,
streak. The
I
steak
know.
is over.
The steak is over. It's been eaten. Do you know what? When is Twitter going to get a bloody edit button? Honestly.
Oh dear. So we are going to go through the Premier League first. We'll go through all of those games, have a little bit of a discussion about each one with any betting highlights from each game, and then we'll go through the Championship, League One, and League Two, just picking out the games that we particularly like the look of there. All the odds read out on the show today will be taken from matchbook.com. Without any further ado, let's dive straight into the Friday night kickoff, shall we? It's Chelsea against Fulham. Obviously, Chelsea gone wild in the January transfer window. They're 1.68 to beat Fulham anyway at home. 4.1 for the draw and 6.0 for Fulham to get the win. Do you expect any instant results from Chelsea here?
No, I just don't know what to think. To be honest with you, I think there's a lot to unpack. I don't know who's going to be in from the start, who's fit, who's ready, how the system's going to look, like what's going to go on with any of it. So really not sure. But one thing I am sure of, Tom, I do fancy Fulham to get a goal. I think they've scored in 8 of their last 10. So one of those, of course, was against Newcastle with the double hit penalty. So maybe they could get on the score sheet 1.96. I think there's a lot of pressure on Chelsea, a lot of eyeballs on a Friday night, and not much pressure on Fulham. So fancy Fulham to get a goal, but not sure on the outcome.
Yeah, I can see it. And obviously, you mentioned that 1-0 loss against Newcastle, but before that, they had scored in their previous 8 consecutive Premier League away games. So,
Mm.
and we long championed Fulham, didn't we, on the pod for being absolute both teams to score bankers. They've dropped slightly from how consistent they were, but yeah, I can definitely see them, probably getting back on the both teams to score horse this weekend. Let's move into Saturday then. Everton against Arsenal. So Everton now under the stewardship of Sean Dyche since we last recorded a podcast. They're 9.2 to get the victory at home in his first game in charge. 4.8 for the draw, and Arsenal are 1.45. One of the toughest games that poor old Sean could possibly want, isn't this really? In Arsenal, they've got a side who are obviously on fantastic form in the league. 5 points clear at the top. Will go 8 points clear at the top if they win this game. And still, despite the appointment of Dyche, which, as a Forest fan and seeing Everton as a fellow relegation battler, it concerned me. I'd much rather they got someone like a Bielsa or other names that were rumoured. I think Dyche is a bit of a scary appointment, but then they didn't make any additions in the transfer window, so they're still going to have a lot of the same problems, I think, that they had before, where mainly scoring goals was a massive issue. Dyche isn't exactly a manager that's renowned for having high scoring teams. It's more defensive solidity. So yeah, I don't know. I think Arsenal win this one at 1.45. Whether Dyche can pull Everton out the muck, I'm not so sure. But it scares me him being in charge more than Lampard or Bielsa.
Yeah, totally. I mean, for this game, what I could see happening is Arsenal winning, but winning uncomfortably. Now, put yourself in Sean Dyche's shoes. The fans are absolutely furious at the moment. They've got no form, no attacking flair. All of Dyche's previous work has been built on a solid defence. He's got top of the league at home. He spoke in his press conference about fighting for the badge, getting back to basics. I saw on Twitter they were doing the bleep test, the Everton players, today. I think he's going to hunker down and he's going to make it difficult. Everton will be in a low block. Arsenal will unlock the door and maybe score one, maybe two at the most. I just think at one point, what are they? 1.45 Arsenal.
Yep.
It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. Just leave that alone. There are way better bets.
Yeah, there are. There definitely are. Moving to the 3 o'clocks then. Villa against Leicester is the first one. 2.06 for Villa, 3.75 for the draw, and 4.0 for Leicester. Villa in fairly decent form. They're in 11th in the league. They've won four. Sorry, they've won three of their last four games, and Leicester's still struggling in the league. They've not won since the 12th of November against West Ham. So 5 games without a win, 4 losses, 1 defeat. Uh, Potentially encouraging signs though in the last league game. They drew tour with Brighton. This is a Brighton side on really good form. James Maddison is back in the side now. He's returned from injury. And I feel like if there was no Maddison, I'd be quite happy to go for Villa here. With James Maddison being back in the side and how integral he is to Leicester, it throws a little bit of doubt in my mind. And I'm going to plump for both teams to score in this one instead. And that's 1.81. We have seen that Villa aren't exactly the best at keeping clean sheets, especially at home. At Villa Park, they've only kept one clean sheet in the last 8 games. So, yeah, like I say, if Maddison now back in the Leicester side, considering they scored 2 against a strong Brighton last time out in the Prem, I could see them getting on the score sheet. Whether they win, though, or get anything from the game is a different matter. But yeah, I think that's where I'd go with this one.
Yeah, Villa have averaged 1.5 goals scored at home this season, obviously per game, and Leicester on the road are 1.7. 1.5 is average, 1.7 is obviously a little more than average. 70% of Leicester's games away from home have also gone over 2.5. Both teams to score is what I had wrote down.
Up next, we've got Brentford against Southampton. So 1.92 for Brentford, 3.75 for the draw, and 4.5 for Southampton. So kind of similar odds, really, to Villa Leicester. Brentford odds on favourites at home, as you'd expect, against struggling Saints. I'd probably go for a Brentford win here.
Yeah, for sure. Southampton been a little bit better away from home under Nathan Jones than they have at home. So I don't think this will be cut and dry for Brentford. But as long as Brentford are at home and they've got Ivan Toney, and who knows how long for, because I'm sure there's a whopping ban coming his way eventually. Yeah, I'm going to be back in Brentford, especially at home. I think it's a good price, and Southampton will make it difficult, and there's potential for them to steal the show. So it's not cut and dry, but Brentford are my fancy.
Cool. Next, then, Brighton against Bournemouth. 1.38 for Brighton, 5.5 for the draw, and 10.5 for Bournemouth. This is a Bournemouth side without a win in 7 consecutive games now, without a clean sheet in 7 consecutive games. And Brighton fresh off beating Liverpool at home in the FA Cup, as we correctly predicted last week on the show. They have been a little bit patchy at home. They've only won 2 of the last 6 in the league. However, I don't expect that to be an issue personally this weekend against Bournemouth. I'm not going to back them though at 1.38. I don't know about you.
No, way too short. Way too short. I think on the surface of things, I kind of like Bournemouth's recruitment. in January. Semenyo, I'm a huge fan of from Bristol City. I watched, I think it's Uatara, Dango
Ouattara.
Uatara. Yeah, something like that. He absolutely torn Forest a new one when we played down there. He was absolutely sensational. A couple of exciting players coming in and very attacking players as well. So they they do kind of strike me to have made improvements, and I fully expect Brighton to still get the job done. However, again, way too short. Much better bets this weekend.
Yeah, maybe if we want to add a little bit extra, you could go Brighton to score and over 2.5 goals, maybe. That's
Yeah,
2.08. Brighton have had 7 consecutive games across all competitions go over 2.5 goals. I'm just looking at Bournemouth's away record in the Prem. Um, they've conceded at least 2 goals in 9 out of their 10 games that they've played away from home so far this season. So yeah, they do tend to concede a fair few away from home, and yeah, as we've seen, Brighton more than capable of scoring. But yeah, with Bournemouth's reinforcements, like we say, Ouattara looks a player. They could get on the score sheet. Up next, then we have got Manchester United against Crystal Palace. Plenty of 3 o'clocks on Saturday. 1.42 for Man U, 5.0 for the draw, and 9.8 for Crystal Palace. Again, another short priced home favourite, as you'd expect, though, considering it is Manchester United. Um, where would you go with this one?
United. I will. I sound like a broken record, but I will say every time someone plays Palace at home, Palace have the players to play a counter-attacking style that could be absolutely anybody on their day, especially away from home. You know, if that Elise, Eze, Zaha, Ayu, contingency starts clicking and, they can find some holes, then watch out. There's always a danger when you're playing Palace. But the fact of the matter is, Man U came through a few tasks against Brighton and a doubleheader against Forest, completely and utterly unscathed. They're in a good position here. Palace have drawn a blank in 3 of their last 5 games. So, yeah, I fully expect Man U to continue kind of being the flat trap bullies.
Yeah,
Beating all the lesser sides and maybe coming unstuck against the better sides. Although they did beat Man City with a high degree of controversy, but that's how I see United at the moment, swatting teams like Palace aside. But again,
yeah, definitely.
too short, too short.
Yeah, yeah. 12 wins in a row at home for Manchester United. And they're on a cracking run, but like you say, apart from City, they've not really played, from memory anyway, a lot of high class sides. They're beating teams they should be beating. Um, On to the final 3 o'clock then. Wolves against Liverpool. 4.3 for Wolves, 3.9 for the draw, and 1.94 for Liverpool. I don't know about you, but I don't know what to go with this particular game. I don't trust any side on show here.
No, I don't trust either side either. I was having a look at a few things, and what I ended up landing on, Tom, is the unders market. So under 1.5, so that's just one goal in the game at the most, basically. 1.96. So obviously these two just played each other in the FA Cup. Liverpool won 1-0 thanks to a Harvey Elliott banger. But yeah, Liverpool, in their last three, they've only scored. In their last four, they've only scored 2 goals, firing a blank twice. And then in Wolves' last three, they have fired a blank twice and only scored one. So both teams really struggling. Obviously, Liverpool have got the players that if it clicks, they could score 3, 4 against anybody. But the issue is it's not clicking, and it hasn't clicked all season as Klopp tries to work out what is going on with the squad at his disposal. So maybe under 1.5, under 2.5 if you want to be a little bit more conservative. but I really think this could be quite an ugly game if you want my opinion.
Yep, could definitely see it. Moving on to 5:30, then Newcastle at home to West Ham. 1.66 for Newcastle, 3.95 for the draw, and 6.6 for West Ham. Yeah, once again, another short priced home favourite. Slightly more backable price for me, Newcastle, if we're going to chuck them in an accumulator. I do think they'll beat West Ham. This is a West Ham side. Still persevering with David Moyes after he got a victory against Everton last time out in the Premier League. Yeah, I just think Newcastle win this one comfortably, probably to nil again, because we keep seeing Newcastle absolute clean sheet merchants. They're an absolute dream, aren't they, for fantasy football? I remember you read out a stat on the pod. Was it last show, the show before, maybe, about Nick Pope's clean sheet record? Yeah, just keeps churning out them clean sheets, doesn't he?
Yeah, and exactly that, Tom. Newcastle and no is what I've got wrote down here. 2.6. I think on one side of the coin, you can say that West Ham have shown green shoots of improvement. But then, if you wanted to flip that on its head, you could say that those green shoots of improvement have been a draw away at Leeds, a win away at Brentford in the FA Cup, a win against an absolute hapless Everton side, and a win away at League One Derby County. So, you know, still need to see more from West Ham before I think they can go away at a team that's unbeaten at home all season and ruffle any feathers. So, yeah, Newcastle on the nose, and if you fancy a little bit more and you want to squeeze a bit more juice from the lemon, 2.6 Newcastle and no.
Yeah, and just looking at West Ham's form now, they've not won away since they beat Villa on the 28th of August. So it's what, 8 games winless away from home
Rubbish.
since then. Yeah, shocking. Uh, they have only lost by more than one goal once. That was when they lost 3-1 away at Arsenal. So the other defeats have been narrow defeats. And that's exactly what I could see here. Newcastle don't tend to smash teams. They win by the odd goal or two. Yeah, so if Newcastle won 1-0, 2-1 here, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Moving on to Sunday, then, biggest game of the weekend: Nottingham Forest, you Reds at home to Leeds United. 2.74 for Forest, 3.55 for the draw, and 2.82 for Leeds. Do you share my confidence? And I don't know if I'm being sucked in by the price as well, but I just feel Forest at the City ground, unbeaten in a long time now at home, especially in the league. Obviously, we lost in the cup to Man U at home, but in the league, unbeaten for a while now. And I feel like Leeds are kind of there for the taking at the moment.
They are. They've got the joint worst away record in the league this season. However, they have played a game less than Bournemouth and West Ham, so I suppose you could call it the second worst, but it's not good reading either way. And yeah, they look kind of vulnerable, don't they? And you're right to point out Forest great home records. Obviously, they just come off a double header against United, in which they didn't cover themselves in glory. But I think what we've found about Forest this season is they are, apart from when they beat Liverpool and drew to Chelsea, who are two fallen giants, they're not really laying a glove on the best sides, and not even getting anywhere near them. But the teams in and around them in the mid-table, they're more than a match. I am not backing Forest, however, until I see Morgan Gibbs White. He's a doubt for the game. Forest fans will know, and it's important that punters know that ever since Steve Cooper has come in, the injury news with Forest is never clear. There's a lot of false information out there. There's a lot of guessing, and when you think about it, we don't really need to know if a certain player is injured or not. It's nice to know, but the priority is, Cooper wants to keep his cards close to his chest. He doesn't want to say someone's out for a long time. He wants to spring a surprise on the opposition manager and all that kind of stuff. Doesn't want to seem weak in the transfer market and desperate. So who knows? Maybe Gibbs White will play this weekend. Maybe he's out for a month. I don't know. All I do know is without him, Forest are going to struggle to create chances. I think Chris Wood is likely going to play as the 9. He had an absolutely horrendous debut, like beyond bad. And I think if Morgan's not there to sprinkle his stardust, he's so important to Forest. We could cut the supply line off to Wood, who isn't a striker, who can create his own chances. So yeah, if I see Morgan Gibbs White in that starting lineup, I'll back Forest. If not, I wouldn't recommend them.
Yeah, it's completely fair advice. Moving into the final game then of the weekend, it's 4:30. It's Tottenham at home to Manchester City. So 4.8 is the price for Spurs, 4.3 for the draw, and 1.78 for Man City to get the victory here. Obviously, now we know that Conte won't be on the touchline for Spurs after he's having gallbladder surgery, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that could potentially be a factor here because that's going to disrupt Tottenham's preparation. It's going to throw them out of whack a little bit whilst they get used to having the assistant manager probably in charge and prepare them for the game. Um, yeah, I think Man City will win anyway. They look like they're kind of getting back to it a little bit. Obviously, beating Arsenal in the FA Cup, that would give them confidence. They beat Spurs 4-2 at the Etihad just a couple of weeks ago. So again, that will give them confidence. And Spurs they just terrify me anyway. Spurs do. I don't know whether I'm coming or going with Spurs. They've lost 4 of the last 5 home games in the league. So whilst it wouldn't entirely surprise me if they did manage to pull out a victory or something against Man City, it would be a surprise on current form, I think.
1.66, both teams to score. That's my tip. I think Harry Kane is almost as good as Haaland has been this season without being as. I think obviously Harry is a lot more of an all rounder, whereas Haaland is obviously a pure goal scorer and a pure finisher and penalty boxman. I think when there's Kane, there's a chance. I really do. I rate him that highly, and I think this season has been one of his best ever. He's just surrounded by pieces of wood, basically. So yeah, 1.66, both teams to score. I think City look vulnerable at the back, and yeah, when there's Kane, there's a chance.
Yeah, just I forgot to mention Spurs have conceded at least 2 goals in the last 5 consecutive home games in the league. So yeah, it could be a high scoring affair again, like the 4-2. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
as well as both teams to score, a goals bet, both teams to score over 2.5, both teams to score over 3.5, something like that. Could be another thing to look into as well. Before we move into the Championship, League One and League Two, let's just quickly mention our sponsors at Matchbook, and yeah, then we'll dive into the EFL tips.
Yeah, we're genuinely delighted to be working with Matchbook. Great people, great organisation to be working with. And if you don't have an account, thoroughly recommend you getting one. TFB Podcast as a promotional code is going to get you a bit of a safety blanket. So it'll give you a money back as a free bet up to 30 quid. So that will give you a little bit of a safety net if you want to go for something a little bit more risky this weekend. Have a little go on that. TFB Podcast is the promotional code you'll need. And yeah, open up a Matchbook account. I'm pretty sure you won't regret it. You can support them and you can support the pod.
Yeah, well said. Right, into the Championship then. This league stinks for me this weekend, to be honest. This is not really the one. There's a couple of things I've got my eye on. Um, One in particular stands out, and then there's a couple that are kind of looser tips. But yeah, you take it away with one that you like the look of.
Okay. Sheffield United. Yes, they just drew 3-3 to a National League team, but I'm not put off by that. They are a Premier League team in the waiting. They haven't lost in their last 10 games, including that FA Cup game, and they're away at Rotherham. So Sheffield United priced at 1.73. I actually think that's a good price, to be honest with you. When you
Mm.
consider the price of who are we talking about in the Prem that escapes me? Arsenal. When you consider Arsenal and the price they're at and the challenge they've got, this is similar in terms of a team right at the top going against one of the worst teams in the league. You've got
Yeah.
second against 20th here. And yes, Rotherham are unbeaten in their last two games, and that is something for them to go off. They beat Blackburn 4-0. Asterix, I think that was coming for Blackburn for a long time. They are absolutely riding an XG wave like you wouldn't believe. And eventually were going to fall off if you believe in the data. Rotherham went away to Watford and got a draw. Credit to them. But before those two results, a 4-1 loss to League One. Ipswich, a 3-0 battering by Millwall, a 2-0 defeat against Huddersfield, a relegation rival, a 2-2 draw with Stoke, who are just an absolute carcass of a club. It's just, it's really damaging to see. And I don't care about Sheffield United's last result, not one bit. I'm backing them all day. 1.73 for them to get a comfortable win.
Yep, cool. Wouldn't surprise me at all. The one that I like the most is looking down at now, the shortest price of all the games in the Championship, unsurprisingly, is Middlesbrough at home to Blackpool. They're 1.58 to get the win this weekend. I think Michael Carrick's been channeling his inner DJ Khaled because all he does is win.
Hmm.
He's had eight wins in the last 10 games. It's seeing Middlesbrough propelled up to third place in the league. Still, it's a big ask for them to reel in Burnley and Sheffield United in the automatic spots. They're about 15 points behind at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, they're certainly giving a good fist of it, and looks like absolutely playoffs at a minimum for them now this season. They've won the last four in a row at home as well, so they're on strong home form. Like I say, winning 8 out of the last 10 in the Championship, home and away. So yeah, full of confidence, scoring plenty of goals, and I, I don't think Big Mick has injected his enough energy into Blackpool yet to turn them around, and this isn't going to be the game for me where Blackpool start to steer themselves away from relegation under Mick McCarthy.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think McCarthy's going to get some results for Blackpool, but I think they're a way off getting anything against Middlesbrough away.
Yeah.
Let's talk about an away team, Tom. And finally, we're going to talk about someone who's not so bloody short. Um, Watford, 2.74. Watford are an absolute coin toss. Let's get that out there straight away. They're playing against Reading away from home. Reading with the seventh best home record in the entire league. So we're going against that. They find themselves in 16th. So they're just ever so slightly below mid-table. Obviously, their away form, as you've guessed it, is the second worst, Reading. So propped up by that home form. Honestly, I just think Watford, priced at 2.74, I just think if they fancy it, they'll win. Like, I know there's not a ton of analysis here and stats and stuff, but I just think Watford have got so many dangerous players, and I've been waiting for Reading to fall off all season. I don't understand, why these are so similarly priced. Reading are 2.96, Watford 2.74. The draw is 3.3. I just think if Watford fancy it, then they can go there and win. And they've got the players to do so. Um, they're obviously in a playoff position at the moment without flexing too much muscle, to be honest with you. And they've won a third of their games on the road this season. So I don't see why we can't back them and have a little bit of a punt.
Yep. It's a good price, isn't it? If they do win, and yeah, like you said, I don't entirely trust them, but if they do get a result, it is a good price. I'm going to look at one more team that I like the look of. Again, a slightly better price. It's 2.4, and it's Luton Town at home to Stoke. City. Luton have lost just one of their last 10 home games in the Championship. So they're on a very good run of form at the moment. Rob Edwards has seen them move into fourth in the league. So yeah, they're going very well. Stoke, on the other hand, I don't really know what to expect from Stoke week in, week out. They are capable of pulling out an odd result. But yeah, they do now have a Harry Souttar sized hole in their defence after he moved to Leicester on deadline day, I believe it was. So yeah, that's going to be a blow for them at the back. And just looking at their away results recently, when they have faced a better side in the Championship, they've tended to lose. So the last three losses away from home have all come against Norwich, West Brom, and Sheffield United. And the games where they have avoided defeat have been against Rotherham, Bristol City, and Wigan. So they're kind of picking up points against teams in and around them in the table. But once they play a side that's in the kind of top eight, they've lost. And I can see that being the case again when they visit a tough place to go in Kenilworth Road.
Agreed. Had that one down as well.
Right, so that's that then for the Championship. Let's move on to League One. Get us kicked off, Mr. Walker.
Yeah, I'll get us kicked off with the gas. Bristol Rovers. I am backing them, even though they've lost three matches in a row. They are at home against MK Dons. They're priced at 2.28. On match, most of the money has been put on MK Dons at 3.35. So maybe they know something that I don't. But I still have faith in Bristol Rovers. They are coming off the back of three defeats, as I said. They lost 5-1 to Morecambe. Not ideal at all. Morecambe just going through an absolutely insane spell. They had an XG of 1.2, I think, 1.22, and scored 5 goals off the back of that. So obviously it was a night where everything went in. Lost against Accrington. I'm not too bothered about that. Not a great result, but I can look past it. And then lost against Plymouth in the Football League Trophy, and I just don't give a monkeys. So yeah, before that, Bristol Rovers were on a bit of a heater, and they were juggernauting towards those playoff spots. I just still believe in their front three, basically. Like Aaron Collins, potentially player of the season, I'd say in League One. 14 goals, 28 games. He's also registered 10 assists. So he has almost got a goal involvement a game. And then Josh Coburn, Joey Barton talks about him as a future England international, the loanee from Middlesbrough. He's also got 9 goals in 17 games. And then when he's not playing, John Marcus is coming off the bench and averaging a goal almost every 4 games. So I just believe there's too much quality for them to, not be backable. And they're coming up against an MK Don side that's won 1 in its last 6 games. The win that they did get was away at Forest Green before Ian Burchnell was sacked. So, that was a great time to play Forest Green. MK Don still troubled and in relegation danger. They are in 20th position. And yeah, I just think I'm not ready to give up on Bristol Rovers, and especially Rovers at home. They've been really good recently. They started off pretty bad at home, but I'm ready to trust them again, to be honest with you. So yeah, I'm backing them. I think they're a nice price.
Yep, fair enough. Another team, not so, I wouldn't class as a nice price, but I think they'll win. Bolton at home to Cheltenham Town. Bolton,
Altonham.
Bolton, Bolton. Uh, Bolton have the third best home record in League One. Pretty strong at the University of Bolton Stadium. They've kept they've they've also conceded the least goals out of any side at home as well. So they've only conceded 8 goals at home across their 15 games. So keeping it pretty tight. Um, and yeah, Cheltenham come to town this weekend, generally on a poor run in the league. They've lost 4 of the last 5 away from home in the league. They've only won 1 of the last 7. So Yeah, they're struggling at the moment at Cheltenham. It's seen them drop all the way down to 18th, and yeah, just Bolton's a tough place to go at the moment. They're full of confidence. The home form is, like I say, is strong, and it would be in the coupon buster category if Cheltenham got a result here, because yeah, Bolton, not only are they winning games, they're keeping it tight. 5 clean sheets at home in a row. Um, yeah, I think Bolton will win fairly comfortably.
Hmm. Yeah, agreed. Let's have a look at Shrewsbury. They're a team, Tom, that I think aren't getting enough credit. They are in ninth. They are 5 points off the playoffs. I think we look at Peterborough and Wickham as serious challengers to the playoff spots. And although Shrewsbury have played more games than them, you know, they are on the same points as those teams. So they deserve a little more credit, I think. They are away at an Oxford side that I don't think they're in turmoil, but it's not looking good over there at all. Matty Taylor, their talismanic striker, has left. The fans are starting to get really frustrated with Carl Robinson. They've lost three in a row, and they've got a Shrewsbury side coming to town who have made a habit recently of beating teams who are in trouble and not in a good place. So they beat Burton 4-0. Bearing in mind, I'm just about to read out that Burton team beat Oxford 2-0. And if you remember, I tipped up Oxford thinking that there was no way that Burton team could get a League One win against Oxford, and they did so. Then they beat Cambridge, and they beat them 5-1. Cambridge, maybe not in a crisis mode, but certainly not firing. Beat MK Dons, and then Forest Green in that dramatic style on the weekend. And yeah, Oxford lost to Barnsley, as I just mentioned, Burton, beaten by Wickham. I mean, before that, they did beat Ipswich at home, which is a big turn up for the Bucks. But I just think they've got injuries. They're just not in a good spot right now. And Shrewsbury are just kind of this happy-go-lucky team that's just going to go up there and play their football and have full belief in themselves. They're priced at 3.75, so they're a big outsider. But I do fancy them to go there and get the win. If you do fancy the double chance, I can get that for you. Completely forgot to write that down. Draw or Shrewsbury, the price is not on Matchbook at the moment, so check closer to kickoff. Bit of an anticlimax there.
Bloody hell. It was. I don't really have anything else that's such a tip. A couple of things I just wanted to point out. Firstly, what the hell for Forest Green Rovers doing last weekend?
Mm.
I thought we were there tipping out a big price winner because Forest Green Rover 3-1 last weekend against Shrewsbury, and Shrewsbury scored in what, the 93rd minute and the 96th minute or something
Yeah,
stupid like that
that's crazy.
to turn it around and win 2-1 when they were 1-0 down that late on. So madness from Forest Green. They're a big price again to win at home this weekend against Peterborough. And another big price, and I'm not necessarily saying they'll win because this is a tough game, but Sheffield Wednesday are playing Plymouth this weekend. So Sheffield Wednesday in second play Plymouth in first. Plymouth are 5.8 for a team that's top of the league, um, unbeaten in 10 consecutive games. 5.8 seems like a big price.
It does. I've already backed him myself.
Have you?
Yeah, I've already backed him. I backed him earlier today, maybe,
Yeah.
whilst I was doing my research, and I saw it, and I thought, yeah, they're playing against Wednesday, and it's going to be a bloody tough old game. But Plymouth are there on merit. I think it's a lot to do with
Yeah.
size of club and all that kind of stuff. Maybe Sheffield Wednesday beating Newcastle at home, all that kind of stuff. But I can't resist having a little flutter at that, to be honest with you.
Well,
You know what I'm
yeah.
like when there's a team I fancy, if they're at home or away, or I don't care who they're playing. I'll
Mm.
back them at a particular price, and yeah, Plymouth are someone I'm going to back. As are, and this is a big shout, and this looks massively biased coming from a Forest fan. I'm going to back Morecambe, right? They're at 10.0. They're away at Derby County. They should lose, for sure. They've not won any of their last 12 away matches, right? Their away record is absolutely shocking. Derby have been brilliant recently. Paul Warner's really got them kind of firing on all cylinders. They're up to fourth. They're looking like they're going to finish in the playoffs and have a chance of promotion. But I'm just looking at Morecambe and I'm looking at their results, and I think I just want to have a little bit of a dance at tens because they beat Bristol Rovers 5-1 as I mentioned, lost against Ipswich 4-0, no problem. Beat Cheltenham 2-1, beat Burton 5-0, beat Accrington 2-0. Like, I just feel like they're kind of going through a bit of a purple patch, and a team like that at tens, I'm having a little bit of fun on it. Don't get me wrong, this is coming not as please back them, they're going to win. But I just want to make everyone aware that there's a team on fire right now, priced at tens, that
Mm.
might be worth having a little flutter on, and that's the kind of betting that I find exciting and I find interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've spoken about three here. You Morecambe, Shrewsbury, Plymouth. Chuck them all in a little fun treble. 183 to one.
There we go. Right, little fun treble. You put that perfectly. We're not saying that they're all going to win comfortably. The likelihood is it's going to lose, but it's fun trying to find these kind of
Yeah, yeah,
outsiders.
yeah, definitely. No more though from me. How about you?
No, no, no. Happy to move into League Two.
God,
I'll get.
what a bloody shocking league this is for
Oh,
betting.
yeah, it's not good at all. I'll get us started with what I think is probably the EFL bet of the weekend.
Hmm.
I'm loving Carlisle at the moment. They
Yep.
came through for me in midweek against Barrow. I backed them, and they won 5-1 for me in a hashtag tough game. They've only lost one at home all season. They've won 8, drew 5, lost 1. Playing against a Harrogate team that haven't won in the last 5 games. Um, they're kind of being a little bit too leaky for my liking as well. When I have a look at Harrogate's games, there's no clean sheet in there for the last 10 games. They are really struggling at the moment, going away to a Carlisle side who look really good for automatic promotion at the moment. Carlisle have conceded just 11 goals at home all season. They're priced very short, as you can imagine, 1.65. But I think they'll get the job done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. This is probably one of the bets of the weekend
Mm.
for me too. It's the absolute standout in League Two. There's only one other that I was considering as well. That's Salford at home to Rochdale. Salford a 1.97, which I didn't think was too bad, just a touch under evens. Rochdale on a pretty poor run of form. They've won just one of the last 11 games in the league. 7 defeats in that run. So, yeah, they're pretty poor away from home. Generally pretty poor in general. Salford have won 5 of the last 6 at home across all competitions. So, yeah, it's a tough place to go at the moment. They've beaten some decent sides as well along the way. Those wins have come against teams like Northampton, Walsall, Bradford, Sutton. So, yeah, they've beaten some decent teams at the peninsula, and it wouldn't be a shock at all if they got another comfortable win against a Rochdale side who are struggling at the moment. They're bottom of the league, 2 points away from safety, and they've been losing to teams around them in the league as well recently. They lost to Hartlepool a couple of game weeks ago, and then Colchester prior to that. So, yeah, never a good side if you're losing to teams around you when you're in a relegation fight and you're going away to a promotion contender.
Yeah, we are now going to be back in 23rd in the league. So we're back in 91st out of 92 in the EFL to get a win. I always talk about re-educating yourself and trying to not get stuck on an opinion. I always use the classic, Stoke are good at home because they were so good at home under Tony Pulis, but that was bloody years ago. And you know what I mean? That still rings truth sometimes. So when you look at Gillingham, you might think, oh yeah, Gillingham, they're that team that scored like 6 goals in half a season or whatever, right? And
Yeah,
they're still the bottom scorers in the league by 7 goals. They've scored just 14 in 26, but they've had a recent takeover. They've made some really smart and shrewd additions, and I now expect them to stay up. They're playing at home against Crawley. They are priced at 1.97, so an absolute touch under evens. Crawley an absolute basket case, like just just absolutely nuts what is going on there at the moment. Just all the crypto stuff, the managers, the fort, like it is crazy. They haven't won any of the last 15 away games. Asterisks, their away record this season is 0 wins, 6 draws, 6 defeats. So they haven't won, but obviously we don't. They only need to draw to screw our Gillingham tip up. So little asterisks, they are quite sticky away from home, even if they haven't managed to land that win. But yeah, Gillingham banging in goals, Tom. In their last 3 games, they've scored 7, right, which is like half their goals in the season, pretty much. A 3-3 away at Swindon, a 2-0 away at Re-Educate Yourself Derby against Colchester, and 2-0 against Hartlepool. I don't see why they can't beat Crawley at home. It's obviously a really big game with the proximity in the table. Gillingham 23rd, hunting down Crawley in 20th. 4 points between them. Yeah, Gills look good for me.
yeah, like it. I didn't have it down, but yeah, you've done some research there, and I like it. You've convinced me. Um, Good stuff. No more though from me.
No more from me either.
Cool. Well, let's recap last week's streak ending or stake ending treble, and we'll bring you this week's stake starting treble.
Yeah, we tried to fry up a winner, but we couldn't quite do so. It was FA Cup weekend, so our hands were tied a little bit. We had Sheffield Wednesday and Luton. They were playing against Fleetwood and Grimsby, respectively, at home, and both drew, which was surprising. 1-1 Wednesday and 2-2 Luton. We did back Carlisle, who I just mentioned, kind of a favourite of mine this season, and they got the business done and won 1-0. But obviously the streak came to an end, and yeah, Tom, one chapter ends, so we can write another.
Yeah, that's right. So this week's treble, it's not the highest paying treble at all. It's 3.84 overall returns, but we're going to go for Middlesbrough at home to Blackpool, Bolton at home to Cheltenham, and Carlisle at home to Harrogate. So we've got a team from the Champ, a team from League One, a team from League Two, all at home, all in
Mm.
good form against struggling opposition. 3.84 is the price. I'm pretty confident in this one.
Yeah, I like it. The docket wasn't that friendly this weekend, but I'm actually really happy with what we've got out of it. To be honest with you,
Mm,
uh,
yeah,
full
agreed.
confidence in all the teams. Road to 3,000 followers. So we're on our way to that. If you want to join in with a nice community that we've built over the years, you'd be more than welcome. T_FB podcast.
Yeah, and if you have enjoyed the show, guys, we'd really appreciate a rating or review wherever you listen to your podcasts. But yeah, as Tom says, do get in touch on social media over the weekend. Send in your bet slips or your winning bets that you have, the bets you've got on pre-match. We'd like to see them all. Any insights you've got on your teams? We had a good little bit of insight on what Rochdale, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Um,
loved it.
from a follower this weekend, which was
Yeah,
great to hear. Um,
Clive Piggott.
Yeah, yeah. So we love that kind of stuff. Just it helps us with our education on teams that we don't know an awful lot about in the lower reaches of League Two. So yeah, no, thanks for that. Keep them coming, and we'll see you again same time next week.